Hello and welcome to this Q&A webinar on our fourth and final call for project proposals in this programming period. A little over 2 weeks ago, we officially launched the current call with nearly 300 participants online on this applicant community, and many of you might have attended this webinar already and sent us your initial questions in the Q&A session we had back then. But this was also not the first time we were presenting this call to you and discussed it with you. Already back in May at our program conference, we gave you a detailed preview, including a detailed presentation on what this call entails. And we were joined there with nearly 300 people on site in Vienna and more than 200 people online, again on this community. On 29 September, the call launch day, we then presented all the details needed for developing a project proposal in this strategic capitalization call. And we also published thematic tutorials and explainers on this call that should help you to better grasp what we are hoping for with your project proposals. We also organized, together with our national contact points, numerous national info days, and there's 3 more coming up, if I'm not mistaken, still in Poland, Hungary, and Italy, tomorrow and next week. So why am I pointing this out at the beginning of this Q&A webinar? Well, today, this will not be another webinar where you will see a detailed presentation of the call. This webinar is for all of you that have already started developing your proposal and have concrete questions because you got stuck somewhere in the development. So we believe we are joined today by, I saw that more than 140 people registered, by applicants that have read the application package, the TORs, had a look at our program manual and all the crucial documents. And we are here today to answer all your questions that you still have after reading and digging into these documents. So let's see what these questions will look like. Time is ticking fast. So let's take a brief look at today's running order and dive into your questions very soon. So what is on the agenda today? As I said, no presentation. We will have 3 questions and answer rounds. We group them into general and thematic framework of the strategic call and capitalization requirements and the approach. We will have a second round then on partnership composition and project intervention logic and work plan development. So we dive a bit deeper into the call, into the application form here. And then last but not least, very crucial, obviously, how do we have to develop the project budget? And let's see if we get any questions on state aid, which we usually also have. So at this stage, before we then really go into the first round, let me briefly remind you that we're also recording this webinar. So you can always go back to our YouTube channel, or we will also share this on social media, and we will upload also the recording to this community. So you can always come back to this webinar. And if you missed a question and answer to a certain question, you can always revisit it at a later point when you definitely need it. Your questions we will take through Slido. You see the Slido tool as part of integrated in this community. And we already received, I wanted to say 20 questions, but I see more and more questions are coming in already. So you seem to be familiar with the tool. 24 questions we have already. So I would like to encourage you to really drop more questions to us. We will then group them according to the rounds and then take them one after the other. And we have 1.5 hours foreseen. Let's see if we need 1.5 hours. But the idea is really to go through all the questions and find answers to your concerns and the issues you found. With the first round of questions and answers. And as I said before, this is about the general and thematic framework of the strategic call and capitalization requirements and the general approach to capitalization that we have. For this round of questions, I'm joined by 2 key experts. First one is Monika Schöner-Kleegrasser, our head of the project unit for strategy. and Luca Ferrarese, the head of the Joint Secretariat. Since you already provided us with some questions, we chose one kickoff question to start the debate. And this kickoff question that you will also see in Slido is, which Interact cross-border projects fall into the category of addressing internal Central European borders? What is the determining factor here? So with this, I would like to ask my colleague Monica to join me.
Thank you very much. So
Hello, good morning,
very
Monica.
good morning. Good morning. So I'm very happy to see that we have received a lot of questions already, and that's very promising. And this first question is actually also at the core of our call, be it the capitalization of both cross-border and transnational cooperation outputs. And specifically, which internal Central European borders have to be part of this capitalization approach. In this sense, I would like to draw your attention to Annex 1 of the TR of this strategic call for capitalization. Annex 1 lists all the 22 cross-border programs which are eligible in this sense, which have internal Central European borders. And this means this is a minimum eligibility requirement, and on purpose it was kept on program level. So this means that projects to be capitalized have to be part of these programs, but could also, of course, be located in regions which are outside of our program area. But in any case, those outputs and results which would be capitalized need then to be of added value for the Central European program area. So please have a look at Annex 1 of the TOR for all the cross-border programs which are falling in this category.
Thank you, Monica, for this answer. I already see the next question in Slido for you. I understand also there's quite a few questions in this first round. So the next question is whether it is possible to present projects financed in a specific objective under another specific objective. For example, 2 Central Europe projects currently financed in under 2.5. Can they apply under 4.1 for exploring the governance of these, or like capitalizing on their products, on their outputs in the governance objective?
Certainly. So there is no requirement that outputs which have been developed in a project of a certain SO need to be capitalized and in a capitalization project under the same SO. So this really depends on the scope and the focus of what you want to do in this new project. Could be governance, could be, of course, also other SOs which are relevant. So for you to choose, really please focus on the SO which is most relevant for the capitalization project as such, no matter in which previous SO these outputs have been developed.
Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Maybe Monica, I can give you a break here because we have 2 key experts in this first round. So maybe I can call Luca Ferrarese in, the head of our Joint Secretariat. Hello, Luca, good morning.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
So we have a question on owning outputs and results. So how should owning outputs and results and having full rights to use them, as we put it in the TOR, because I guess inverted commas is a quote, be demonstrated in the proposal, and with what kind of documentation evidence?
Well, first of all, this is more, let's say, on interest of a project to be able to, or to have access to the outputs they intend to capitalize in order then to implement the project. Because if, for example, you have you intend to capitalize a database, but you cannot use it, you cannot modify it, then it becomes a challenge to implement the project. So the request here is that you pose yourself the question, can I use these outputs I'm going to capitalize? And then you explain in the application form how this is ensured, so that you present that in your project that you have a plan in order to use it. There is, however, no need to demonstrate it in the application form. You just have to explain, and then this is enough. Your explanation has to be convincing, has to be sound, but still there is no need to document the use of or the access to these results. And to be honest, in most cases, I know that results are available for free and widely accessible by everybody. This is the normality in Interreg, let's put it this way. But still, there might be some of the outputs you intend to use that, for example, are hosted by an institution which is not part of your project. Therefore, are you sure you can use it? Are you sure you have access to these tools or not? This is a question you should answer in the application form.
Thank you very much, Luca. I think it's very clear, hopefully. If you think that a question of yours was not fully answered, or you think an aspect was missing, feel free to pose the question once again in Slido. Refer also to an answer where you would like to have a bit more of a clarification, and then we can come back to that a little later also. So we have another question, Monica. Maybe I can come back to you. The question is, can we capitalize an output from a cross-border project having an indicator which is not used by Interreg Central Europe, if it feeds into an Interreg Central Europe indicator in the new proposal?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. That's a very concrete question. Maybe as a general answer, we are capitalizing outputs and results, but we are not referring to particular indicators in this call. So this means, of course, different programs have selected different output indicators and different result indicators, and we work on output level. So picking outputs which should be capitalized in combination with other outputs. But it's not an issue of which indicator is to be adjusted or which one is to be adapted. So certainly such a project can be a combination of different outputs covered under different indicators. So taking this example, for instance, I think it was referring to the RCO 83, which is the strategies and action plans to be capitalized. And in combination with an indicator, if I remember right, I think this is dealing with training schemes or participation in trainings. Sure, this can be a possibility to capitalize both together in a single project, together with other outputs. So no limitations in terms of output indicators to be addressed.
So long answer also in short. Thank you very much, Monica, for this. Now from the thematic question, we come to a chronological question, I might say. So the question is it eligible to include in the proposal also the capitalization of the results or outputs of a project that will still be ongoing at the time of when the call is open? Meaning, like, does an output or a result have to be finalized already right now when the call is open, or could it be finalized later?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this question is also already explained in the call documents, or it says that project outputs, they should be somehow in an advanced stage or finalized. Of course, if you take, for instance, first call or second call projects of the Central Europe program, they are mostly still on, or they are all still ongoing. So this means when you submit your application, those outputs might, in most cases, not be available in the final version. But still, they should not be there just in a very basic or very early phase of development. So outputs, they should be already an advanced stage, and considering that when projects then would finally start next year, they should be in a final or nearly final phase available.
Let's take this one then. Is it sufficient to adapt existing outputs and results by applying them in new areas, or do they have to be further developed and then applied?
This is a capitalization call, where on purpose existing outputs should be taken and adjusted. And they could, of course, also be further developed. So that's the purpose is not to invent anything or develop anything from scratch, but to build on what is already there. So this is actually seen to be on a case-by-case basis, whether it makes sense to maybe further develop some elements of the outputs, to adjust them, to transfer them maybe to other sectors or other regions, which might require some maybe minor or major adjustments. But this really depends also on the capitalization approach and how you would like to capitalize. So I think it's the purpose is not to take one existing output and just apply it the same as it is, but of course to further work on it in a joint way within your partnership by combining also with other outputs and results from other projects.
Okay. The next question is quite a specific one, Monica. So would it be possible and advisable to capitalize on an Interact Central Europe output, which is linked to organizations cooperating across borders using an upstream approach?
Of course, one of the outputs according to our output typology is the organizations cooperating across borders, which can, of course, be upstreamed in the sense that cooperations are widened, they are applied, they are made more sustainable. But of course, this is not the only output. Capitalization has to be bring together at least outputs from 4 different projects. But of course, part of this upstreaming could be also the cooperation as such, and making it maybe more sustainable, making it or basing it on a further institutional level. So I think I think there are different approaches, and it's up really to each project to see how to do it. But of course, this could be part of the upstreaming approach as well.
Thank you. Well, the next question, maybe Luca, I can call you back in. Monica, thank you very much for now. I give you a short break. I bring back Luca. Luca, I know you touched on this already in the answer before, but we are coming back to the evidence that needs to be provided to prove ownership. So it seems there was still like maybe some unclarity. So maybe I don't know if you could further clarify this briefly.
Yeah, maybe I can just emphasize that there is no evidence that you have to bring in your application form to show that you own the results. It's on your interest. You just have to explain it carefully. Of course, if one day when implementing your project, you experience some issues because you cannot use the results or the outputs you are planning to capitalize, then of course at that point we will ask you why this was not addressed from the application form. And then, every situation is to be seen on a case-by-case basis. So the message here is just explain for your interest, no need of evidence at this stage.
Thank you, Luca. I hope we now clarified this further. And then I would like to come back to you, Monica. And here the question is, in our core documents, we speak of outputs and results that should be capitalized on. And the question is therefore here, is it okay to capitalize a deliverable instead of an output or result from an Interact Central Europe project?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. And I think it goes back to what we have as definitions of outputs and deliverables. And for this, I would clearly refer to our glossary in the program manual, where it exactly distinguishes what are outputs and what are deliverables. Outputs are the direct products of our projects, which are generated, which are developed. And there we have this typology of outputs, including strategies, action plans, pilot actions, solutions, and organizations cooperating beyond borders. Whereas deliverables are actually, they are a form of documentation of maybe smaller steps leading to such an output, or the documentation of the output as such. What should be capitalized is the output or result as such, which of course is supported by the relevant deliverables.
Thank you, Monica. The next question is about and, or, and. So can we do capitalization on outputs only, or must it be on outputs and results, or results?
Okay.
So, floor is yours.
I see. There is again a bit the terminology which is maybe to be a bit explained. So as said before, outputs, they are the products, and those are the products to be capitalized as such. When we speak about the result, this is then actually the consequence of the output. It's the change which should be achieved in the regions as a consequence of the output to be implemented in the territories. And of course, this goes together, but in terms of capitalization, I would rather recommend to focus on the outputs as such, of course, keeping in mind the result, which is directly linked to the output. But if you think about further developing or adjusting outputs, please always think about the output. And I think it's also I think there was also a question which I saw, where can we find outputs and results? So there, I would like to refer to our program website on the project gateway, where you can really have a very clear overview on all the outputs which are achieved by each of the projects. And of course, explicitly, they all lead to the results. So results should be kept in mind, but the product to be actually capitalized should be the outputs.
Thank you, Monica. Going even a little bit beyond the questions. So hopefully you clarified also some other additional elements here. So is it that this is really nice, by the way, before the questions were all anonymous. Now we have a question from Christiana Spini. So thank you for revealing also your name. It's always nice when you know who you're talking to on the community. So the question by Christiana is it required that the lead partner lead applicant is involved in a Central Europe or Interact cross-border project that the new proposal wants to capitalize, or can it be involved in the downstream upstream activities, I guess?
This is actually a bit more a question on the partnership as such, but there are no limitations. I think it's really up to each of the partnerships to see who of the partners would like to take over the lead partner role. And it's not necessarily linked to the outputs or the results to be capitalized. Of course, there is always the lead partner role is I would say the most challenging one. It has the highest responsibility, but there are no specific requirements on who has to be the lead partner, or if the lead partner has to be the owner of one of the outputs to be capitalized.
Thank you, Monica. And of course, you're absolutely right. We are moving into the partnership questions slowly but surely. So I would like to thank you already at this stage, because the next question will be a bridge between the general session and the more specific questions on partnership and work plan development. So may I ask Luca to join me briefly, because Luca also attended, I understand, the Italian National Info Day, or will attend the next one. So Martin Hauptmann received information from a National Info Day in Italy that a consortium should include givers of the outputs and takers. Is this true?
Oh, well, thank you for this question. And I think, Frank, you are very familiar also with this approach and terminology. It's all about terminology. Especially in Italy, I know that there was a very extensive work done by the community of Interact colleagues in Italy, together with the Department for Cohesion in Rome, on capitalization, where they define also in combination with Interact this definition of givers and takers. As you said, Frank, givers are those who are giving something to be capitalized. Takers are those who are rolling out, who are applying. Honestly, a same organization could be a giver and also a taker. It depends. It depends on the project. So we don't stick to this, let's say, definition, or you don't need to explain in the application form if it is a giver or a taker. You just have to explain in the application form what you want to do, how your existing outputs are going to be tailored to new needs, how your existing outputs are going to be taken up, for example, on the policy level, if it is an upstreaming, or in new territories or new target groups, if it is downstreaming. Then, when you describe the role of the partners, it has to be clear how you manage to do this upstreaming or downstreaming. And in this case, you will be able to explain in the application form de facto who is a taker or a giver. But as I said, it's a terminology. You don't need to use necessarily this terminology in the application form.
Thank you very much, Luca. There's actually one huge shortcoming of our applicant community, and this is no one can applaud, give an emoticon, express their satisfaction or dissatisfaction with what was said. But Monica and Luca, please just imagine, I think, a big round of applause from the audience. And with this, I would like to come to the second round of the questions and answers. And in this one, we will look, as I said already earlier, into the partnership composition and the project intervention logic and work plan development. In this session, I'm joined by Christoph Ebermann, our operations head of the project unit.
Good morning, Frank. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Christoph. So, same as before, we have already selected a kickoff question from the questions that reached us before we launched this Q&A webinar. Christoph, the first question, you know it, is can partners from the same consortium separately apply for 2 or more different project proposals that capitalize on their joint results?
Yes, so basically the question also goes in the direction of whether the same project can be capitalized by several partners in different project proposals. Yes, the answer is yes, it can, as long as it is relevant for these project proposals. So, yeah.
Okay, short and crisp answer. That puts a little bit of pressure on us to come to the next question. So here we go. Is it mandatory to include legal entities from the original projects as direct participants of the consortium, projects whose results we intend to capitalize?
Yeah, I think this time I will go for a bit longer answer, since it brings in together two elements which I saw are addressed in many of the partnership questions. When it comes to the word mandatory, mandatory refers to the minimum requirements. The minimum requirements which we have, since we are a transnational cooperation program, are to have at least 3 partners from at least 3 countries, out of which 2 are from Central Europe. So this is the minimum requirement. This is mandatory. For all the rest, this is recommended. So the question is whether you need to, or you should include the legal entities from the original projects. Well, we are recommending you to include the organizations that were actively participating in the earlier Interreg Central Europe projects from which the outputs and results are capitalized, and the same for the cross-border projects from where you are capitalizing the outputs and results, in order that you have the knowledge and the expertise related to these outputs, and that you have the points which we were just discussing, the ownership or the rights to use the outputs which are coming and stemming from these projects. So this is a recommendation, and this recommendation or following up on this recommendation is advised, because this is also subject to the quality assessment of the proposals. As you can see in the TOR, there is this table 4 on the selection criteria and guiding questions. So you can see that including the partners which are actively participating in these projects will be part of how your project will be assessed.
Thank you, Christoph. The next question is, are there any special requirements regarding the composition of the consortium? Should it include partners who will only use the outputs?
Well, there I would refer to our terms of reference, section 6.2, partnership composition, where if I read out, the partnership should be composed of organizations that were actively participating, as I was just mentioning, in the Interreg Central Europe project, or and for the output coming from the cross-border projects in the concerned Interreg cross-border projects. They should be owning the results being capitalized or holding the rights, as mentioned. And then there's a third bullet point in our recommendations, which is a very important one. It should also include additional organizations that can facilitate the upstreaming and downstreaming of existing outputs and results. So the idea of this call is, first of all, to capitalize outputs and results from at least these 4 projects, bringing them to a next level, and then having the institutions on board which allow you to support, for example, the upstreaming, or so you might have some policy sector or policy actors which are in charge of policy making as part of the partnership, or you might, in terms of downstreaming, have some territorial actors who can then roll out the outputs in the respective territories you want to address. So yes, we do have recommendations on the partnership composition, and as mentioned earlier, it is being assessed as part of the quality assessment of your proposal whether you are following these recommendations or not.
Thank you, Christoph. Maybe just a quick look at the number of questions. We have been going down from 24, 25 to 12 questions, so not that many left. So if you still have a question, also if you have a question still on the general part, yeah, feel free to still post it. If it is a new one that we didn't answer before, we can always come back to that and call Monica or Luca back in. But for the time being, Marta Simonato has another question on partnership, Christoph. And this concerns the new partners who did not participate in the project that is being capitalized. Can they be included in the project proposal? I think this we answered already, but can they also be the coordinator?
Yes, maybe just to stress again the first part, yes, additional organizations can be included. We often get also the question, can newcomers be included? Yes, please. They are welcome if they are relevant for the topic and for what you want to do in the project. Whether they are the coordinator or not, meaning the lead partner or not, this is also up to the partnership. So there are no obligations that the institution who is being the lead partner of the project must be the one who is capitalizing an output. No. It can be whomever from the partnership can take the role as a lead partner, and then the partners, I think this is very an important point. The partners should have the competences and the capacities for doing what they are supposed to do in the project. So if you have partners who have the expertise on the outputs being capitalized, and you have another partner who has a lot of managerial experience on leading transnational cooperation partnerships, might be useful for the smooth implementation of your project to have this partner as your lead partner. But this we leave absolutely to you, how you want to shape your proposal. And yeah, so yes, it is possible.
Very much building on this, Christoph, another question by Marta on universities, on research, university partners and organizations. I think we have to look into this question also at the word recommended. Do we recommend that universities are the lead partners? I mean, of course, they can be lead partners, we just learned.
Yeah. So they can be lead partners, and we don't have any recommendations of who should be the lead partner, apart that the lead partner should be experienced in managing a transnational cooperation project. This is, again, if I refer also to the assessment criteria, and the question whether the partners have the competences and capacities to do what is their role in that project. So yes, this is something we're looking into, and whether this is a university or a another type of public authority, local public authority, regional public authority, this is really depending on how the project is set up and what fits best your needs to have a good project proposal.
Thank you, Christoph. Or clear, I'm sure. We have someone anonymous who is really eager to participate in our call, I understand. So the question is about multiple participation. Is it possible for one institution to participate to different proposals under the same specific objective or in general?
The answer is yes, and maybe if I take the answer, what is not put in the question is whether this institution is participating on behalf of the same project in several other different proposals, or whether this institution is possibly in several projects and wants to participate in several proposals. The answer in the end is yes. What is important, however, is again, the institution should have the competences and capacities to participate in the other projects. This is very much important. Then the institution should be relevant for the topic of the proposal. So we do have also in the terms of reference, the idea that we are following a qualitative approach, not a quantitative approach. So it is not the more the merrier. So you need to demonstrate that you have the right partners on board, which have the capacities to implement the project. And then last but not least, the point of capacities is important. You cannot, or it is not advised that you go into all possible proposals, and then if your project is, your proposals are successful, then you're not able to implement them. So this is also something you need to consider. What are your capacities? What are you wanting to do? What can you bring as an added value to a partnership? And are you relevant for the topic? Because this is what is going to be assessed, as said, competences, capacities, and what is the role of this transnational composition.
Thank you, Christoph. In the next question, I do not like one of the words. Christoph, you can secretly start guessing which is the word. You probably know. It's a partner carried out only communication activities. As a communications manager, I would never use only when it comes to the implementation of a project, obviously. So, but anyways, the question is, a partner carried out only communication activities in the project whose results will be capitalized. Is this partner eligible for participating in the new project proposal?
Yeah, I will start from the end. the word eligible. Eligibility refers to minimum requirements. Just to repeat, minimum requirements are to have at least 3 financing partners from at least 3 countries, out of which 2 are from partners from Central Europe area, plus the eligibility requirements of the single partner, so eligible applicants you find in the TOR in the section 5. So if you fulfill these requirements that you are a public institution, a private institution, etc., then yes, you can of course participate in this project. But then the point which Frank is referring to, it's exactly the word only. We consider in our program communication to being an integral part of the project and of the work plan. So you cannot be doing communication in an isolated way. But then again, it comes to what do you need to demonstrate in your project proposal. And there we have the recommendations that the organizations were actively participating in the earlier Central Europe projects being capitalized. In terms of actively participating, the definition we have is it is not only formally involved in the project, but it also contributes to its activities. So again, if we take now the case, which it's hard for me to imagine, the institution is only doing communication and has done nothing on the output being capitalized, well then what is the added value this institution can then bring and the expertise on this output? But this again, this is something you need to demonstrate in your application form. This has nothing to do with eligibility requirements.
Okay, Christoph. So thank you very much for this. We have basically 7 questions left, 1 more in partnership. And now I can let you know already that we have not yet a single question on the work plan development or the intervention logic. So it seems that the application package is pretty clear on that. So the last question to you for the time being, then let's see whether we receive new ones. What happens if 2 different partners from the same project want to capitalize the same output in 2 different projects? Is
Yeah,
this
this is
possible?
exactly what I meant, I think, with my initial question. So, yes, they can. If it makes sense, they can. A partner of a project XYZ can, from the partnership. If you have several partners who want to use either even the same output or maybe different outputs of the same project and capitalize them in different project, in other project proposals, there are no rules on this. So there are no limitations on this. It should make sense and it should be relevant.
Thank you. Well, with this, Christoph, thank you very much. To link over to the budget where we become very specific, I will just there's one question that is really going to the basics, and I think this is something that we have seen that some of you are really also new to our program, and this is fitting actually the first session, Interact Strands. Can you explain what this is? So basically, the strands are the transnational cooperation program, which is Interact Central Europe. And you heard also the terminology, the cross-border cooperation programs. These are 2 different strands of the Interreg instrument. If you want some more detail on this, you will find this also on our program website in the About Us section, where we also explain like what sets the 2 apart and what brings the 2 together. So here, obviously, with this call, the idea is to break silos between the 2 strands and bring together the best of these 2 words that are anyways very closely related to each other. So if you have any more general questions, also like this one, basic ones, please drop them in Slido. We have a few questions left, but for the time being now, I would like to move on and touch on the next round of questions, which concerns project budget development and state aid. Here, we don't have that many questions so far. Let's see. Our key expert on this is Helga Portelli, head of the program unit. And so far, there's no question on state aid, which would be the expertise of Luca Ferrarese, again, our head of joint secretariat. So let's have a look at the kickoff question that we received already before we started this webinar. And then we can welcome Helga to join us. Can we calculate staff costs using the individual's costs from the most recent fiscal year, or must we use the actual costs incurred? Helga, clearly your field of expertise.
Yes, good morning to you, Frank, and good morning also to our participants. For answering this question, I think we need to look at the different phases of a project. We are now at the application phase. And later on, if your projects will be approved, there is the implementation stage. So now that we are at the application phase, when you are preparing your budget, and specifically here, we're talking about staff costs, one should, yes, look at what the staff costs were in the recent months and calculate the budget on this. So it would be that it more or less would be a realistic budget. And this is what we want to see in all cost categories, not only in staff costs, that what you put in the application form is the real budget. On the other hand, when it comes to implementing the project and when you will be reporting the costs, then those costs would have to be the ones that have actually been incurred. So it's not calculating it how you would have calculated it and in the application form, but it could also be slightly different based on what actually has been paid to the individual staff members.
Thank you, Helga. We have a question on patent costs for existing results. If a proposal wants to capitalize on those, would these costs be eligible?
Yes, such costs are eligible, would be eligible under cost category 4, which is external expertise and services. And when one looks at the list of items that can be included under this cost category, one could also find intellectual property rights. So just to make reference to the program manual, one would need to look at chapter 1434.
Thank you, Helga. A very specific question from Christiana on closure costs. They should follow the same option of project implementation. Does it mean they will be in real cost for options 1 and 2 and flat rate for option 3? Maybe you can also explain what the options are.
Yes,
Because
I would
I'm
explain
not
what
sure
the
everyone is
options
familiar
are.
with. Yeah.
And I would also explain what closure costs are, so to make really a good definition of what the closure costs are. Closure costs only refer to activities that are related to reporting and control expenditure, for example, of the last reporting period. So anything related, all costs related to the implementation are to be included in the implementation part of the costs and not under closure. So closure is really the last step to close the project and report to the MAJS. Now, coming to the specific options, when we refer to option 1, this is mainly what we usually refer to as the real costs option, where you have staff costs on a real cost basis, and also cost category 4, external expertise and services, cost category 5, equipment, and 6, infrastructure and works. These would be on a real cost basis, and then there are the flat rates for administrative costs, so cost category 2, and travel costs. So this is the real cost option. So when it comes to closure, in this case, it would follow exactly the same. So if you have some staff costs or some external expertise, then you would also get the flat rate percentage for administrative costs and also the flat rate percentages for travel costs. What would be good to mention here is that in the closure costs, we do not we will not see, it's not we do not expect, it's definitely we would not see cost category 5 and cost category 6, because those equipment, infrastructure and works are not closure costs, but they would be part of the implementation costs. So for closure, if you would have staff costs or external expertise, in that case, they would be on a real cost basis, whilst cost category 2 and 3 would be on a flat rate. With regard to option 2, this is the option where you have real costs for cost categories 4, 5, and 6, and for staff costs, cost category 2 and 3, they are flat rates. And here again, if you would have external expertise, then you would get the flat rate for staff and flat rate for admin and travel. But if you do not have any external expertise for the closure part, you would not get any costs reimbursed for the closure in that case, because option 2, staff costs are really based on the flat rate. And then option 3, which is having cost category 1 staff costs on a real cost basis, and then all the other costs on the 40%. For closure, you would have this option as well. However, it goes without saying that you need to have staff costs in the closure phase in order to get something reimbursed.
Thank you, Helga. I think our applicants now have two options. They can rewind the recording and play it several times, your explanation. Or I would recommend before they rewind and listen to you again, because you nicely explained what it is all about, to go to our program manual and read through. And then I think what is in between the lines, or if there's any questions, I think then you nicely put it and answer the questions. But for those that did not understand much yet, because you have not been part of a project in Interact Central Europe yet, it's really also very well described in the program manual, and you will find it there in chapter, I don't know, Helga, do you know by heart which chapter in the program manual?
You mean for the cost options,
Yeah.
the different cost options? Oh, I would not know it by heart, but there are chapters on each and every cost option. So it would be chapter 143.1 would be staff costs. Point 2 would be, so there are a number of chapters there. But there is also a chapter on simplified cost options, which is chapter 1426.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And Frank, to add to what you were saying, these 3 options are very nicely visualized in the program manual. So it makes it more clear to understand how they work together. Yeah?
Yes, so there will be graphic support next time you listen to Helga in the recording. When she explains to you these options, you have a graphic support in front of you. And I think then it will become much clearer. So thank you very much, Helga, for this. I'm afraid we're coming to an end. Half an hour ahead of time. So we have 2 more questions left, but these are more of a general nature and concern partnership. So maybe Christoph, can I call you back briefly? Once more partnership and not work plan development. So if a partner has only participated in cross-border projects, is it now not recommended to be a lead partner in this call due to their limited experience? Coming back to the recommendations.
Exactly. No, I think it's great to have this question and to be able to clarify. So indeed, what I was saying is partners should have the competences and the capacities of doing what they're supposed to do in the project and to fulfill their role as foreseen. Which does, however, not exclude a partner from a CBC project to become a lead partner, because I read out to you on the basis of what your project would be assessed. That's why I will always come back to this table for selection criteria and guiding questions. So in here, you will see that the guiding question in this regard is, does the lead applicant have sufficient experience and capacity to manage a transnational cooperation project? Or is there a clear plan to acquire missing competencies through, e.g., additional staff or subcontracting? So yes, it is possible to have a lead partner coming from a CBC project who has only experience on CBC level. But then if the partner is demonstrating how this partner is going to be able to manage a project at transnational level through additional competences and capacities acquired, subcontracting, etc. Why not? This is fully possible.
Super. Thank you very much, Christoph. And with this, we come to the last question of the day. And I believe this is probably for Monica. Hi, Monica. So the question goes, can we have any combination of Central Europe project results for capitalization? For example, a result or an output that concerns behavioral change, and another one that is about leveraging public and private funds.
Yeah, certainly. But what I have been already explaining before in relation to a question on output and results, please really keep in mind the terminology. So when capitalizing, please focus on the outputs, on the products. And as said before, the results, they are rather the consequence, the effects on either target groups or the territories, which in this question you have correctly named as behavioral change or leverage of funding. But please relate it back also to the outputs, which have been actually inducing this change or this result. And for the capitalization, of course, it can be a combination of different outputs leading to those results.
Thank you, Monica. So with this, we're coming to an end of today's question and answer webinar. Of course, if there's new questions popping up, feel free to send us an email to our help desk at any time. Request an individual consultation. There's many ways that we keep on supporting you. The National Contact Point Network is always there for you. As I said, there's still 3 National Info Days coming up tomorrow and next week. So this is not the end of our support measures. So we're still at the beginning of this call, and we really encourage you to make use of whatever support we can provide to you. But it seems, because this is the fastest Q&A webinar we ever had across this programming period, it seems that the call documents seem to be rather clear. And also, probably most of you are already kind of experienced with how to apply with us. Nevertheless, especially for those that are still building their partnerships, I would like to emphasize how important this community platform is that we are hosting this event on. It's not only an event platform where you join our events and can later look and have a look at the recording, but you can also use it to post your project ideas. That will also become the basis of the individual consultations. You can request the individual consultations, and you can also express an interest in joining project ideas or putting there what kind of expertise is probably still missing to make your project proposal a perfect one. On the individual consultations, I would like to come back and give you the date once more. The call closes on the 27th November. Until 19 November, you can request a consultation. You can still have it then after the 19th of November, but we really recommend not to come too late with such a request and to have the consultation, because you might get inputs from my colleagues at the JS that will help you to further fine-tune your application. And it's probably never the best idea to do this very last minute. Well, I think with this, it's about time to close. I would like to thank you very much again, my colleagues, for providing all the answers in the past hour. And before I let you go home, or you're probably in the office or at home following this webinar, we would appreciate a lot if you can give us your feedback. I know it's always something that you rather skip because it's an online event, but the more feedback we receive from your end about our events, about how we are organizing this webinar, how we are doing our support measures, the better we can fine-tune things in the future. So feel free to scan the QR code that you see there and give us some immediate feedback on today's webinar. And we will try to take up your suggestions also in future webinars that we might have. Then, not for applicants anymore, but for beneficiaries. So maybe we meet again as beneficiaries in the near future. And with this, thank you very much once more for attending this webinar, and all the best wishes from Vienna.